Great. Can everyone see that? All right.
Perfectly, thank you.
Fabulous. So thank you for having me. Lovely to see you all this morning. So I guess before I get stuck into virtual perfume, just to give you a brief introduction. So my name's James. I am the founder and creative director from a virtual fashion house called Republic. We launched in 2020, so we're in year 3 now, and have successfully worked with various brands from the likes of Coach, Dior, ASOS, Disney, Jean Paul Gaultier, etc. And we work with a whole host of, I guess you call them kind of metaverse or gaming platforms, everyone from sort of Fortnite and Roblox and Zepeto at one end through to Decentraland, Spatial, Ready Player Me, etc. Worlds, Sandbox from more of a metaverse type space. My chat or conversation or presentation this morning is all about, is the metaverse ready for virtual perfume? As I said, we're a metaverse ready full service digital fashion house. So we know a little bit about this space. Fashion, I think, was one of the first industries to really embrace the metaverse. And I think we are now seeing a flux of beauty brands that are almost seeing what the fashion brands are doing and thinking, how do we get or be part of that conversation and part of that experience with the metaverse? So we're seeing a whole wave of beauty brands that are now wanting to enter this space, which is one of the things I want to talk to you about today. I guess just before I do that, one of our sort of core beliefs as a business is that we believe every fashion brand, and in fact not just fashion, but every brand period at the moment that's got a real world presence will need to have a virtual one at some stage. I'm old enough to remember life pre-internet, but when the internet came along and everyone said to all the retailers who had bricks and mortar stores, you're going to need to go online, you're going to need to have e-commerce stores and an e-commerce presence. We saw that happen in the 80s and 90s. And I think we're seeing a similar thing happen now, where brands are, if they're not already, starting to think about how they enter the metaverse and what that means. And there you go, just for completeness, there's a view of some of the brands that we're working with today. So quite a few, I guess what I'd call kind of household names, or names my mum would recognize type thing. Right, so let's talk about this. What could the metaverse smell like? The smell is a strange, I guess, kind of thing, and something that is very difficult to translate into something that you can kind of really experience in the metaverse. But it doesn't mean that there isn't opportunity there for brands in this space, or brands that are wanting to enter this space. I'm going to go through some examples with you now of some of the work that some other brands are doing or have done in this space. The first one I want to talk about is Gucci. So Gucci have invested very heavily in Roblox as one of their core kind of metaverse strategies and gaming strategies. They've created something there, I don't know if you've seen it, called Gucci World. And within Gucci World, they have regular activations that they effectively launch within their own space. What you can see in front of you here is Gucci Flora, which was essentially a perfume that they launched in a virtual sense on Roblox. Unlike when you go into a retail store or a department store, though, there is zero smell in Roblox, so zero sense. However, what Gucci were able to do is build a whole series of different virtual experiences, challenges, games, and even wearables. There were some backpacks and clothing that they did with their bottle design, all within that space, to ultimately help promote the launch of their new Gucci Flora perfume. They also had if memory serves me correct, they also had a avatar of Miley Cyrus, who was the kind of brand ambassador and the face of this perfume as well, all within all within Roblox. Now, that doesn't, I guess, allow consumers, users to physically smell the perfume, but it does create an engaging and an immersive platform for them to ultimately advertise the launch of the perfume. I think, like a lot of brands, Gucci sees Roblox as a key channel to reaching a new audience. A new audience that perhaps currently are not existing Gucci customers, firstly, a new audience that is potentially a lot younger than their core demographic and core audience. But through creating engaging experiences like this, they are essentially able to build that brand affinity and that ultimately that brand love with a new target audience at a much earlier age, enabling them to get much greater and longer sort of lifetime values out of those relationships, essentially building a pipeline of future potential consumers, which is an incredibly smart way about going about things. In all intents and purposes, they're using Roblox as an advertising platform, but a lot more than traditional advertising platforms like Google or Facebook or whatever junk we see day in, day out. This is a truly immersive advertising platform, much more subliminal. Yeah, if their Gucci world in Roblox, if you've not had the opportunity to go and look at that, I would highly recommend. And that's just one example of a brand launching a perfume within a metaverse or gaming space. Similarly to Gucci, Armani Beauty partnered with Fortnite to promote their men's fragrance code. Again, very similar to how Gucci launched their Flora perfume in Roblox. Armani created, again, a series of challenges and immersive experiences that they called Rewrite the Code, which ultimately led to users discovering the new scent. Again, ultimately looking to drive sales, ultimately looking to build that brand awareness, reach a new target audience. But look, be under no false illusion, these brands are in these spaces to tap into new customer segments, new audiences, build that brand awareness, that brand affinity, and then sell physical product. So that's two examples of brands who have entered the Web3 metaverse, maybe slightly more gaming space to launch perfumes, but these aren't really, I guess, kind of perfumes within the metaverse. I'm going to give you another example now, and this is by a perfumery called Ultra, and you can look these guys up online. They did something slightly different. They tried to create a whole bunch of virtual environments where they were looking to link the sense of scent and smelling with the emotions that we attach to nostalgia, or when you see a certain image perhaps and it brings back memory, or you can almost smell an image, right? So they translated their sense into virtual spaces and almost kind of creating these digital moods, wanting to engage consumers to almost imagine the experience and emotion of a scent through these digital landscapes. So you hopefully see on my screen here, and I've kind of had to dim this down a little bit, but this is an image that you can almost smell. So you can see the orange colors in here, the sort of burnt textures. It's clearly in a sort of desert setting. There's some wild flowers on there. If you close your eyes and sort of tap into your senses and your emotions, you can kind of imagine what this image or what this landscape might smell like. Now imagine that Ultra have got multiple of these. Maybe they've got an aqua-based one, which is more blue and has more water in it. Again, that pulls together and brings very different emotions to the forefront, and makes you imagine a whole series of very different scents associated with that. Quite arty as a route, and quite experimental and experiential, I guess. But I guess really pushing the boundaries and trying to put people out of your comfort zone and truly use your imagination to see if you can really sort of feel and bring the sense from an environment, an engaging sort of virtual environment. Again, very, very different way of how perfume brands may want to look at potentially launching into the metaverse. Now, that's everything I've gone through with you there has been more sort of, I guess, kind of software and game related. Hardware also plays an important role. So OVR Technology are a company that have developed something that their branding is Scentware, and specifically for VR and virtual reality. Essentially, what they've got is a whole series of add-ons to VR headsets that use simple clip-on cartridges. So they clip onto your VR headset, and then they submit or push out, I guess, kind of nano bursts of scent during your metaverse and gaming experiences, which is super interesting. So imagine if you're in a game and you walk into a meadow full of roses or flowers of some sort. At that point, this cartridge, this Scentware, could push out a scent of floral smells to you via your VR headset. So not only are you experiencing the metaverse visually and from an audio perspective as well through your VR headset, but now another one of your senses, the sense of smell, is also being triggered. And this, I think, is somewhere we're going to see sort of the future as these, as the metaverse becomes more engaging and more immersive. I think we're likely to see brands wanting to create a sort of truly holistic experience that taps into as many senses as possible. And now, thanks to the guys at OVR Technology, that is possible. So that's another extreme, I guess, of this. So we've got the brands that are launching perfumes in the metaverse and you treating it as an engaging marketing platform. We've then got those that are taking more of an artsy effect or an art and creative approach. And then there's the hardware piece and hardware element like this. One last example here, and this is quite interesting as well. So this is a company actually based out of the UK here called OW Smell Digital, and they have just raised, or I think in the last 6 to 12 months ago, just raised $1.2 million as part of their funding to develop an AI-driven Photoshop for smell. Which is, again, I never thought we'd end up in a place where we've got a kind of Photoshop for smell. They've developed so far a scent-based library of over 400 fragrances. So, and I've put some examples here. So pastry shop or bread shop, a bakery. If you see a bakery, we all know what bakery smells like, and that again, there's that nostalgic element to it, but it brings through that sense of smell. Drinks, whether that's a mojito or maybe a beer or a glass of wine, excuse me, fresh orange juice. Again, we all know what those smell like. And then even things like wet ground or wet grass. Again, I think nostalgia. We see certain images or certain colours that bring those smells back into our heads and brains. So this is a really smart way of using and creating a scent library from various different images to trigger the sense of smell in us. Yeah, so again, very different approach to the sense of smell, and maybe not so much perfume, but just what is possible and what can be possible. I guess I call all of these things experiments. So the metaverse, Web3 is still uber new for all of us, right? We're still riding this wave and learning and educating as we go. So everything I've gone through with you and those examples I've gone through, for me, still feel like experiments. But what they are doing is certainly making me question the culture of traditional beauty. So we live in a traditional beauty has always been about, and if you look at fabric, it's been about, or fabric, if you look at about fashion, so it's been about touchy-feely fabrics, right? Or diamonds and how they sparkle, perfumes, how they smell, skin moisturizer and how it makes you feel from a touch. But there's always been a tap into multiple senses. We live in a very different world now. We live in what I call this kind of new era where we are now far more driven by visual beauty. So thanks to things like Instagram, TikTok, and various other online platforms, beauty, I think, is defined more by an appearance or how something looks. So when it comes to perfume and scents and the sense of smell, that needs to, I think, now be communicated in a far different way to traditional methods, traditional in real life methods. And that's where this whole piece around visualization comes to play. So can we visualize a scent as opposed to having to rely on being able to smell it as we would traditionally? Look, the metaverse, and I think everyone here will agree with this, offers huge opportunity for brands, particularly those within the beauty space. I think we are still at a stage where brands are ultimately looking to drive sales revenue of physical in real life products. That's still the business model that a lot of brands are historically built on. Their supply chains, etc., are built to support that. However, the metaverse can help significantly with enabling those beauty brands to build awareness and reach and target completely new consumer segments, growing consumer segments, segments of consumers that today they might not be engaged with or speaking to or selling to, and that's a massive opportunity for brands. That is one that I don't believe can be overlooked. Not just metaverse, but if you look at gaming as a whole, the volumes of people that game, Roblox's users are well into the 50+ million, I think, users, active users per month. These are younger demographics. Beauty brands, I think, are always wanting to tap into a younger audience, almost kind of priming and building that pipeline, as I mentioned earlier, for future customers. Essentially, at the moment, this is advertising, but it's advertising through, and I put here, engaging experiences or immersive experiences. So gone are the days of watching and sitting there and watching TV ads or looking at ads in newspapers or listening to commercials on radios. We've moved past that. But then along came this thing called social media, where we had tailored advertising or personalized advertising to us based on our behavior and our interactions on those platforms. But it was still quite static. Now, as we enter the metaverse, we're in a whole different realm now, where advertising can be through gamification, through challenges, through experiences, through communicating with friends and finding new friends and stuff like that. And I think that is what these brands are doing to really tap into and build that brand affinity, brand loyalty, and brand love at an early stage. I think that's me. I've got one more slide to go. Yeah, here you go. So look, the challenge I think or as an industry, that the beauty industry is going to face today, is that Web3 and the metaverse is largely, or has largely, been developed by software engineers, who, whilst incredibly skilled, lack the, I guess, kind of nuanced knowledge of sense and the sense of smell. If I look at how the fashion industry has embraced the metaverse and Web3, you'll see that fashion designers now are skilling up in 3D design, Clo 3D, that kind of stuff, and are really wanting to become digital first designers. We almost need the same from a sort of perfumery perspective, or I've put here a sort of scent choreographers, because I think that's going to be the next thing, is how do we translate those scents into that kind of visual space of the metaverse? And that is a skill set or a role that I think is going to be very hard to fill. So there you go. That's me done. I hope I've done that in plenty of time, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That was super, super interesting. So 2 questions from me. So one is, I've been looking at using generative AI to come up with concepts of pop-up stores that you can then build in Blender, bring it into, Unity, create a metaverse. And that's a low-cost way of testing something out to then potentially bring into the physical world. So you could do the same thing in terms of perfumes and then bring those into retail spaces and actually have the physical smell. Have you looked at also translating what you're doing digitally in the physical world at all?
Yeah, so that's very funny you should mention that. So we've actually, this is more on the fashion sense, but we've got as a brand, we're so that's, I call that the kind of phygital space, which is where we see this as kind of the next big thing, or certainly the thing that's going to bridge the gap between the real world in real life and the metaverse. So we've got a fashion show actually in Paris for Paris Fashion Week next week, where we've got virtual clothes that we've designed that we've had created as physical clothing. So we're reverse engineering and going backwards. So typically we see brands that want to have their physical product turned into a virtual one. We're doing it the other way around. We're a virtual fashion house. We're taking virtual clothing. We're making those into physical products. So we're doing that as a brand. It could work from a perfume perspective. You could use AI to, perfume bottles as an example, or something visual like that. You could use AI to give you a bank of different perfume bottle designs. There are costs, and I know this having gone through this, there are premium costs associated with creating prototypes. So if, again, perfume bottles, you could create using Blender or Unity or anything like that, you could create a virtual store with all your different perfume bottles in and let people go in and vote for their favorite perfume bottle or try different perfume bottles, labels, bags. Sky's the limit. I think the whole metaverse space is a great one for kind of testing and learning and doing kind of almost what I'd call traditional A/B testing, but on steroids, because you can sort of touch it, feel it, see it, and yeah, so massive opportunity.
And what research did you do in like the physical world in terms of understanding perfume?
What research have we done?
Yeah, to
So
do a project like this.
so we work with a couple of brands. We did something actually. We did a project last year with Jean Paul Gaultier, who are renowned for their bottle design again of torsos of male and female. We've all seen them in the shops. This male and female torsos. They launched a new perfume where for women where the bottle was of a female torso wearing a corset bustier. We took that bottle, we then took the corset design from that bottle and created a virtual corset that we then used to fit to photographs of influencers and have as an in-game wearable. So you could almost become the perfume bottle. So giving people an opportunity to truly wear the perfume. Now, granted, they didn't have the scent or the sense of smell wasn't there, but this is all about how do you visualize the perfume or the bottle or the experience and create an engaging and immersive experience that fundamentally makes people, when they're walking through a department store and they see that perfume bottle, think, do you know what, I'm going to buy that. I've seen that online, or I've got an affinity with that brand. So we've done some stuff with Jean Paul Gaultier. We're working with a couple of other brands at the moment, another one that I can't talk about, but I think that beauty brands are all over the metaverse at the moment. I think they've seen this flux of, I always think the fashion and beauty industries almost like brothers and sisters. They kind of go together hand in hand. Fashion industry was one of the first to jump on the metaverse because it's all about visual identity and it's about being somebody you can't be, or creating a different persona. So the fashion industry jumped on that bandwagon and has been really leading the way above all other industries. And I think now the beauty brands are thinking, hang on a minute, we want a slice of that. So we are seeing more and more beauty, skincare, perfume type brands that are wanting to and looking to enter this space.
Fantastic. So exciting. And two more questions more on like the business side of things. So if you are a creative, maybe you know Clothes 3D, prompt engineering, what's the best way of working with a brand? And then another side of the business side of fashion is to do with licensing. So licensing of fashion brands into games and things like that, if you've had any experience of that side.
Yeah. Okay, so there's two very different questions there. I'm going to tackle the licensing one first. We as a organization have got a whole bunch of trademarks and IP and have spent far too much money on that as a brand. If you are seriously wanting to build a brand, protecting your digital brand, your digital identity is incredibly important. The challenge we've got is that with the digital world, I mean, counterfeits is a huge business in the physical world. In the digital world, it can be even easier to copy and paste images and to do things. I'm in two schools of thought around that. If certain people copy things, then maybe that helps to build your brand. But look, I think the IP conversation can be a huge one. When it comes to the gaming platforms, we've got relationships that we've built over time with Fortnite, Roblox, Zepeto, Spatial, etc. And we've built partnerships with those organizations whereby only we are allowed to sell our branded products and things like that. I think if you're a consumer and you're in Roblox marketplace looking at wearables and you see a Gucci t-shirt, you can see who the owner is or who created it. And if it was created by Gucci, it's a legitimate item. If it was created by somebody else, you'd have question marks over that. So I think as consumers, as we spend more time in the gaming and metaverse world, we're going to become more savvy and more switched on to these kinds of things. And brands, I think, need to prepare for this and make sure they are following the right the right routes to market, the right channels, etc. When they're entering these spaces to protect themselves. When it came back, when you mentioned about designers, so there are so many design tools out there. Clo3D, clearly from a Clo3D and Marvelous from a fashion design, clothing design perspective, lead the way. Blender, Daz 3D. We're doing stuff with MetaHuman at the moment and Epic. I mean, there's so many tools out there. I think trying to skill up across all of them is quite a job. But I think, yeah, depending on the niche you want to go down, I think would depend on what tools are the best ones to skill up on.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And should
Sure.
people reach out to you on LinkedIn if they want to get in
Yeah,
contact?
please do feel free to reach out. And Francesca, I'll send you a copy of the deck as well that I've went through.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Have a
Amazing.
great
Right.
day.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.